with it for so long and put in that time are able to make it look like an almost entirely different deck. They seem to always have the right pieces at the right time. They're able to devastate their opponents with Marnies and Paths to the Peak that are timed to perfection. Meanwhile, this is being matched up against Palkia, another titan of the metagame. Every time a new deck is trying to rise up and solidify a spot for itself in the metagame, Arceus is the gatekeeper.
Yeah, Nick Flores is going to be on the other side playing that Palkia, and a lot of this list looks very similar to Tord Recklef's list, so this certainly could be a really great matchup here, seeing two prime deck lists going head-to-head.
Oh, look at that Temple of Sinnoh, that Path to the Peak, the Golden Virgins looking so nice, but in the prizes, it's not where they're supposed to be. But getting into the start of the game, the players are all ready to go, and it looks like there is nothing stopping them now. No mulligans, no shenanigans. We've got Sobbles in the active, and Grant Manley's going to start us off and open up with a level ball.
Yeah, this is a beautiful start here. Of course, having multiple Sobbles in play is something nice. Grant, obviously, the one big caveat of playing an Arceus build is you would love to have that Arceus V down with an energy attachment. It's the one thing that really separates Arceus players from Palkia, is that consistency piece needs to be there every single time, and we do see Quick Ball and multiple energies. What a start here for Grant.
This is what you want to see, the turn one Arceus development, having the energy in hand to attach. Going to be able to have a strong foundation if Arceus can get out ahead of Nick, start sniping down these Sobbles, prevent the Palkia V from getting established properly. It won't be able to showcase its power.
It's safe to say that Grant was probably one of the hottest players that we had in the 2019-2020 season, with a day 2 at every single regional that he attended, and he's also had multiple top 8s in those as well. So really just trying to build on that right now. Had to take that little hiatus in the online scene, but even then was still performing very strongly.
When we look at players like this, that if you could choose to guarantee make day 2 at every big tournament, of course you're going to take that. You know that as long as you can win in a narrower field, then you feel like you're at a much better state, right? Some players opt for a deck that has more stable matchups because they're anticipating a wider variety of decks. But here in day 2, where the field has been narrowed, if you're bringing something that is known for its consistency, known for its ability to play into almost any opponent's deck, then you are going to be massively rewarded here. And Arceus keeps proving that a strategy of that nature can still carry you at the highest levels of play. Oh, gigantic research. Discarding a lot of fancy cards here. Echoing Horn, double boss sent, and a Palkia V-Star has to be discarded. We've seen this so many times where players have to make that tough decision. You can't just keep your cards if they aren't doing anything for you. Cut your losses and try to find something better. Try to create a new path for yourself.
Grant held onto those cards for a long time. I think he was asking if any of them were for trade. That was the most blinged out discard I have ever seen.
Nick Flores is not here to play around. That's that extra intimidation factor, not to mention that Radiant Greninja on the bench. Even when it's not blinged out, it has a fantastic hollow pattern of its own. You can only have one Radiant Pokemon in your entire deck, so it feels that much more special.
This is a beautiful setup from both players, honestly. Look at that. Nick Flores already with the energy attachment to the Palkia. Radiant Greninja down, multiple Sobbles. Grant is certainly going to have his work cut out for him, but this is a fantastic start as well. The Drizzile, the Arceus V already down in play, and we will probably start looking towards the Starbirth.
We can get Drizzile, maybe pull another Evolution Incense, and then have the second Drizzile get a Scoop Up Net, move this thing out of the active. It's all coming together. Okay, Evolution Incense finds the V-Star, then going to go for Starbirth. Scoop Up Net is found. What's the second card you think, Kyle?
Yeah, probably another Pokemon would be a nice choice here. If you're able to start to charge up another Arceus V by way of a Trinity Nova, then you put yourself in a great spot. This is where deck list information, though, is going to be important because both of these players are actually playing a Starmie V. And when you have this many energies potentially in play, that opens up a world of pain if you overcommit.
In game one, when you aren't aware of the tech, this is where it's the most devastating. We saw it earlier in the stream with that Galarian Zigzagoon, a card that typically does not see too much play, had devastating outcomes versus Ross Cawthon. And now with Arceus V-Star hitting the active spot, has the energy charged up. One more quick ball, digging through to get another Pokemon, as you said, Kyle, getting the Arceus V, so you have another Pokemon to receive these energies from the Trinity Nova. And hopefully Nick Flores has the proper cards in hand to respond to this incoming attack.
We see Grant just going ahead and grabbing that Dunsparce. We're not going to see that played. I think that's going to fall as some discard fodder for the Professor's Research coming up here. Just trying to get these cards out of the deck right now, make sure a lot more of the draws are live. And certainly you would like to see an additional attacker. So you can start thinking about what you do after this Palkia V-Star on the following turn is inevitably going to attack into you.
Yeah, Grant Manley feeling very confident in the power of this foundation, of this setup. Just using that level ball to thin through and make this Professor's Research just a little bit better. Says that this turn is done. I just need to plan for the next one. And we're just waiting now for this Arceus V-Star to KO this Sobble.
Well, nice little find here for Grant. Found the big charm if he wants to go ahead and use that. We also may just see a hold of that or maybe going to the bench. It just depends on how many energies really want to come down here, and it looks like Grant is going to be able to play a little safe. Honestly, just needs the one because he already has multiple double turbo in hand.
Arceus Inteleon is a deck that is very content to play a very small bench versus Palkia V as well. If all else fails, you can still limit the damage potential from Palkia V. It's gotten a lot of success just by abusing those decks that cannot afford to not bench those Pokemon, right? Like the Mew especially. And with Arceus, your engine is so condensed into 2 or only 3 Pokemon, you are totally fine with denying Palkia its subspace swell. You've got, especially with the big charm, the threat of Sharon's Care, Nick Flores has to jump through a lot of hoops and fill up this bench to try to hit as hard as possible. Irida also finding its way into the game here finally. With Radiant Greninja already down, we can actually find the Palkia V-Star. And the Capacious Bucket. Energy's hitting down now. And I don't really know if Nick Flores has the damage output. Is there a couple more Pokemon in hand, did you see, Kyle, to fill up the rest of this bench?
Yeah, well, even with a full bench here, not going to be able to threaten a knockout anytime soon here on the active Arceus V-Star. That's one thing that Grant Manley certainly was trying to play around here. And we are going to see Radiant Greninja potentially try to draw into a few more of those Pokemon. I think we do see a quick ball in there. So if Nick wanted to progress, we do see the Palkia as well. So a full bench is live if he so chooses.
The attachment, the evolution, it's all coming together. What's the difference between an extra 20 damage here? Again, this is where Grant can really take over the game. You've got the second Arceus already set up on the bench, and once this Arceus V-Star takes damage, if you have the Sharon's Care, you just return it back to your hand and then just re-evolve this next one. You have the attacker to swing back in on the Palkia. Grant's got the dice already set, and here it goes back over to Grant, and there's the draw. Going to take a quick look at the hand. I thought I saw the Sharon's Care, but it's really hard to say. These players are moving fast.
Yeah.
You know that when you're in an Inteleon-based mirror match like this, there's going to be a lot of time eaten up because of the deck search, because of the shuffling, and Grant is confident that he can win this game. He win this entire set. He doesn't want it to go to a tie. Sharon's Care does scoop the Arceus V-Star. Arceus V promoted to the active, and there's the re-evolution and the double turbo that was saved from the turn before. This is a beautiful cycle. Big charm attached to the next Arceus, and Nick Flores' attack was for naught.
Yeah, that is so strong. The big charm there onto the Arceus V, just protecting around boss's orders is going to be a really nice find there for Grant. It also leads into a second Sharon's Care potentially, and you already see holding those resources of the water energies in the deck, oddly enough, is actually going to be a really strong play there for Grant. It means that they're there when he wants to do this additional Trinity Nova now, going to go ahead and accelerate that energy, has the damage in play on the Palkia V-Star, and it's hard to say that he's not ahead right now because this looks really strong.
This is so heads up by Grant as well because you have the double turbo energy in hand. You just accelerate the one energy, and this inadvertently plays around the Starmie V. At this stage of competition, Grant is probably very aware of that tech in Palkia, and Nick isn't aware that Grant might have it as well, just trying to get set up. A few more energies hitting play thanks to the Melanie, drawing 3 cards. Can we get a little bit more damage? Can we find some way to pivot to the next Palkia instead to keep these prizes out of Grant Manley's hands for another turn or two?
Well, we do see Tool Jammer as an inclusion that's sitting in the hand, it looks like, so that would negate a big charm. However, we're still right now looking at 200 damage if Nick were to find the additional Pokemon. So we'd have to have a card like Echoing Horn, and there'd have to be a basic in Grant's discard. We know that Dunsparce was pitched early, but not sure if Nick has access to all those cards or even plays that.
And it looks like it is going to be the retreat after all. Radiant Greninja going to be the Pokemon promoted here. Just buying some time with the single prize Pokemon. There's also the threat of the Star Portal to attach the water energies to this, get the Moonlit Shuriken down, maybe snipe this Drizzile.
Yeah, I was waiting to see when Nick was going to pull the trigger here because he has prized his additional stadium, his counter stadium in that Temple of Sinnoh if a Path to the Peak were to fall, and you have to take advantage of these abilities when you can. Finds a perfect time to use that Star Portal before Grant potentially locks him out of it forever, and this is a really clean way to damage both of these Arceus or even remove the Drizzile from play if he so chooses, and that's how you start to work around Sharon's Care.
Trying to find at least one KO, cutting off the Intellion engine has been the best way, the most consistent way we've seen throughout the NAIC to really stifle these Arceus decks because their damage is so limited. They have to make up for it with the Sharon's Care and with that utility. If there is no Drizzile, if there is no Shady Dealings to get that consistently, then you can more confidently set up those 2-turn KOs.
We already see the double boss's orders shuffle back from the PAL pad. Those are going to be some key cards to blocking out the advantage of the Sharon's Care. When the Arceus V has to come down into play and only has 220 hit points, that's when things start to get sneaky. You can probably start working in knockouts from that point, and we already see the damage on both of these Pokemon, a nod to how important it is to attack into them and take knockouts, because if you do not clean up Pokemon in this match, they just go right back to the hand.
I do like spreading this damage as well. You're covering those big charms. When both Arceus are under threat simultaneously, Sharon's Care can only save one. With the Drizzile in play, you know that Shady Dealings and Teleon is the only line that Grant Manley can go for here to find more cards. No other evolutions available. So Nick Flores says, I can leave this Drizzile here for another turn. This is just about getting rid of the true threats, and it's interesting that Nick is going to opt for this sort of punch through strategy rather than a disrupt and slow down strategy.
Interested to see what Grant's decision is going to be here. We see the Melanie, which is a little bit of a slower turn now. And the energies are a bit awkward too. A lot of double turbos in the hand. A lot of nice cards. Maybe for a couple turns ago, we see that Path sitting in there now.
Grant with a massive hand, deep in thought. So many options available, but still trying to restrict his bench. Play around that Palkia V-Star, play around that Subspace Swell, trying to respect Starmie. When your opponent puts you under a lot of pressure, you have to start picking your poison. You can't play around absolutely everything because that's just a way to slowly get bullied out of the game. And we'll see if Grant is going to try to make a calculated risk here and try to extend into one win condition or the other, thinking about the Collapse Stadium and the big charm here.
Yeah, Collapse Stadium is a really nice card when you're playing in the mirror match, just not when there's a Palkia with 180 damage on it.
yeah, now that the bench is full, if you play that collapsed stadium, this damaged Palkia V will get discarded. Maybe that's what Grant Manley's fine with here. That's just another attacker that's out of the way, even if you don't get those prize cards.
Prize cards are dumb. We don't need them. Yeah, this is you just go ahead and remove threats, and one way to remove threats is have your opponent throw them away for you. So Grant is going to go ahead after that, and really it's just going to be a resource battle now. We've already seen Star Portal come down, the V-Star ability. We've seen the Radiant Greninja. It's likely to be knocked out at this point. There's at least one more Palkia V-Star coming, and maybe Nick will be able to get one more attacker, and that's just a race that Grant is willing to have right now.
And with the energy acceleration off of the Trinity Charge, we have the next attacker set up and ready to go. This is just that beautiful crescendo of consistent attacking pressure that Arceus is capable of. As soon as Nick Flores misses a step, Grant's going to be able to attack twice and just get irreparably ahead. And it's up to Nick to figure out a way to keep the pressure back and respond in kind.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Grant understands how impactful that collapsed stadium was, because I think that at least 2 stadiums are prized for Nick right now, and for him to get a knockout with the tool-jammered Palkia V-Star, he's going to have access to all of his bench slots.
The Tool Jammer negating that big charm, negating that HP, essentially just being like an extra choice belt. It's great to see. I love techs like this where you know that your opponent's going to try to disrupt that math. The HP, we've seen it over and over again this weekend. Key turns being shut down because you're short just that 10 damage, that 20 damage. And if that is all it takes to throw your opponent off for a turn, you get those bigger punishes with a scoop-up net, with the Sharon's Care, just with a retreat onto the bench.
I think we saw the Leon. That's a great way to add in this additional damage right now.
Leon, a supporter card that boosts by 30 more damage. Nick Flores already accounting for the fact that his opponent's going to be limiting their bench, trying to limit the damage on the Palkia V-Star, and has to include more cards in the deck in order to shore up the damage potential, increase that damage cap, as you said, Kyle.
Yeah, this is so clean. Of course, some people at home might be thinking, oh, just go grab the quick shooting Inteleon, you'll be fine. But that's not an inclusion in this list. Nick just going with 2 of the shady dealings Inteleon, and is now going to make use of some of these tech supporters and item cards in such a clean way to remove an Arceus V-Star right now. That's pretty clutch when you prize a lot of your stadiums.
No ability to get stadiums, relying on the shady dealings. Nick Flores really valuing the Aqua Bullet. It's been rising to prominence over the course of the entire metagame. Also has the Nessa here being grabbed, allowing you to put water Pokemon and energies back into your hand.
I'm not sure yet.
Yep, Nick says he's not sure what he's going to do next. Fair enough.
Yeah, sometimes the Inteleon players leave the deck unshuffled because they're planning to dive back in and get more things, but it's always nice to just get it shuffled anyway, just to make absolutely sure. So here comes the Leon, here comes the Tool Jammer. The players are doing a little bit of math here. I think he's got it, Kyle.
Yeah, that is a clean knockout. I think it's it's plus 20 more than necessary, so that's going to be just fine. Was 10 short until the Leon came down. That is going to remove the huge threat off of Grant Manley's board. And Grant's kind of been waiting for a situation like this now. He does have so many cards still in hand. Just needs to work on finding an additional attacker. Even needs to find another Arceus V-Star, because Power Edge doesn't feel too great here.
This knockout, so explosive for Nick, was set up long ago with the Star Portal onto the Radiant Greninja, getting that spread damage onto both Arceus. And now with the knockout finally coming through, Nick Flores is on the path to victory. We just need to find maybe another damage boost. That Pal Pad was already used for the boss's orders. Can we get this Leon somehow back into the hand?
Yeah, unlikely. It's probably seen its time, and 1 Pal Pad seems to be a pretty fair inclusion. And this is going to be an awkward attack from Grant, but it is correct. You need to get this damage down onto the Palkia V-Star right now. It is the only real threat. You are likely going to lose this Arceus V on the following turn, but that falls right into Roxanne, baby. We're good.
Once your opponent goes down to 3 prize cards, you have that ability to come back into the game. And this wouldn't even necessarily be a comeback because these players are still so neck and neck. You're just taking advantage of a temporary slump in order to put your opponent onto a potential massive brick.
For Nick now, it is important to find an energy to get the secondary attacker going in that benched Palkia V right now. You need to start thinking about future turns. We do see the Capacious Bucket in hand, and there should likely be some waters. And now it's just what else do you want to do to potentially play around what's likely going to happen is that you're not going to be holding that hand next turn.
Exactly. Here comes the Capacious Bucket. Just going to thin, look through the deck, see what is left. This game has gone on, it seems, for only a few turns, but the players are already so proficient at thinning through the deck to make absolutely sure that they're drawing the best tools as possible. Nick Flores had shuffled those 2 bosses orders back into the deck and is just waiting for them to come out so that he can maybe just start sniping on the bench to get those final few prizes.
Looks like we will see that Nessa coming down, an inclusion that has been beneficial in a lot of different matchups. And of course, getting use of those water energies once more is always going to be nice to see.
Palkia V-Star being found, 2 water energies, and eyeballing this Radiant Greninja, looking at the Inteleon, has to make the choice here again with that collapsed stadium. Can't put anything else down onto the bench at this time.
Oh, gonna find that water energy, get that Palkia V-Star down, and then of course having that Inteleon for future draws off of the top would be so nice. So great find there for Nick.
Unfortunately, at this particular avenue in the game, when you have your opponent about to set up for a big Inteleon turn, for a ton of evolutions, they are automatically giving you a massive green light to say, please use your Marnie, use your Roxanne, and disrupt that. But does Grant have it here now that Nick has dropped down to only 2 prizes remaining? We see it there in the hand.
Yes, that is exactly what Grant has been looking to do. Has been holding on to this 10-card hand for the entire game pretty much, just trying to work out the most optimal line here, and it was the sacrificial Arceus V getting the chip damage in onto the Palkia V-Star, and sure enough, we are going to see that Ultra Ball Arceus V-Star going to make its way back into play. Grant has a awkward decision, I guess, to make about energies right now. Could go for the double turbo, the quadruple.
The quadruple turbo. The Starmie V being discarded here. It's good fodder. At this point, Nick Flores has almost no energy in play. This isn't really the matchup for it necessarily. And it is now revealed Sobble also going to get discarded. Grant is limiting the bench, but has still managed to fight and have a consistent attacking Pokemon in the active turn after turn. Level ball for the fail, just thinning the deck down further.
The prophecy.
The quadruple energy into the Roxanne. This Arceus V can still attack. It's not going to be doing a lot of damage, but so much has already landed onto this Palkia. Only a little bit more needs to come through.
This will be really big to see what Nick can find on the other side. These cards so crucial, and of course we saw the play around with the Nessa being able to shuffle back in this Inteleon with the shady dealings. We see the open Sobble bench space, which could potentially lead to the Drizzile. So a lot of live draws here for Nick to potentially continue to put some pressure onto these Arceus V-Star decks.
All right, Grant had shuffled it up and cut, decided his opponent's fate, and the 2 draws. We see a quick ball, and what's that second one, a Capacious Bucket?
Yeah, those are live. That's that's not. We didn't see the Radiant Greninja shuffled back in though, actually. So that's not the best. At least an attack is online though.
Yeah, because Nick realizes that with those stadiums and the prizes, it's not quite the right time to be able to bump that. And we'll see if maybe the top deck for this turn could also be something to add to this hand and make it even more live.
Grant going to put himself down to just 2 prize cards remaining. Really hoping to see nothing out of Nick. And what is waiting for us on the top? Another quick ball.
And now we've got Arceus V-Star and Palkia V-Star staring at each other in the active spots with 2 prizes remaining for both players. The next KO could decide this first game.
Well, Nick essentially playing hands down at this point. The strategy is already laid in place. Origin form Palkia V-Star will just be attacking through, hoping that 280 hit points is enough to endure. And we'll see what else is left. Oh, there actually is still a Lumineon potentially. That quick ball would be nice. We don't see a path to the peak just yet. So just the Collapse Stadium, that one open slot could potentially be a nice supporter card if Nick chooses later on.
Yeah, with the Lumineon finding that supporter, it's a great way to just cycle in and find the missing piece that you need to clutch it out here. This game has been so close, so back and forth the entire time. Quick Ball discards the other Quick Ball. We're looking for the Pokemon now, and the Lumineon is sent to the top here and is put onto the bench. Roxanne is the pick from Lumineon V. Nick Flores is going to strike back at Grant Manley. 2 prizes versus 2 means that both players are in the sights of Roxanne.
Yeah, this is absolutely huge. Gets the attachment and then is going to put Grant on a 2-card hand.
2 cards, 2 shots at maybe finding a tricky retreat, 2 shots at finding some way to get this Arceus out of dodge. Taking tons of damage here, even with Grant limiting his bench as much as possible. Palkia has the ability to set up that 2-turn KO. Nick Flores, drawing 6 cards from Roxanne, has 2 copies of Boss's Orders to maybe stop Grant from putting up a shield and putting this Arceus onto the bench. There it is in the hand. If Grant Manley can't somehow find a way to get a knockout on this Palkia, it's going to be the end of game 1.
Yeah, Grant is licking his lips at potentially taking that Lumineon V at some point. 170 is going to be a little bit out of reach, but there are some wacky draws that may be able to make this happen. Potentially a Shady Dealings Inteleon into wacky retreat. Scoop up net boss would be able to clean up that double turbo energy, get you back to hitting for 180. But you're asking a lot of your deck on just 3 cards.
There's the attachment, looking to maybe just retreat here. Has a Marnie, going to try to find a little bit more resources. Draws up to 5 cards. Has the Sharon's Care, can get this Arceus healed up. But is that still going to be enough?
Well, not this turn at least, and that means that a Boss's Orders would do it for Nick, and we know that he shuffled in multiple copies of that with the Pal Pad.
Pal Pad coming from Grant Manley, finds the Boss's Orders, thinking about what's the other supporter I want to put back into the deck, but decides just to go for just the Boss's Orders, want to keep things nice and thin, nice and efficient. Both players know that this is the moment of truth. Whoever can find that boss, find that key target on the bench, that's what's going to happen.
Wow, and there it is. The Boss's Orders waiting in the hand for Nick. That is going to close out game 1 here with Grant Manley falling to Nick Flores' Palkia deck. What a way to start things off here.
These games have been so close, so back and forth, so down to the wire. This is what we love to see, Kyle. The KOs going back and forth and back and forth. Roxanne countered by another Roxanne. And when you can force your opponent to think on their feet, do they have the resources to find that piece that I just ripped out of their hand and shuffled back into the deck? That is the only hope for a lot of these situations when things are so close.
Yeah, but putting your opponent in an awkward spot and just manipulating their hands is a great way to close games out. We talked about that earlier with the Mew Genesect deck. It's one of those decks that's very susceptible. You'd think that having the Inteleon line would help you out in situations like this, but Grant had played down so much of it that he just wasn't able to find a live top deck.
And Nick with the mulligan. So Grant starting with an extra card. The prizes are already decided. I think Grant was started with a Sobble. And this is looking a little bit better. When you shuffle the cards and try again, we've seen finally with the Palkia, unable to get off of the ground, but Nick Flores finally showing us a little bit of what this deck can do, even with Grant trying his hardest to limit the bench, limit the possible damage from the Palkia with the Collapse Stadium as well. Nick has that Leon technology and the Tool Jammer to still push through as much damage as humanly possible.
Oh, that's not the starter you want to see, Nick. finds his tech Starmie.
Starmie now in the active. The Misty, the full art Starmie, you love to see it. This is one of the newer cards that were revealed from the Astral Radiance that everybody was so hyped when this was revealed. They wanted to open it up. And of course, Nick Flores with the blingingest deck that we've seen so far. Of course, he's going to have this full art Starmie V. Irida opening up on turn 1.
Yeah, Grant already passed his turn. Yeah, if you blinked, you missed it. He did not have the opening energy attachment to the Arceus, decides to forego and hold on to just level ball. Drizzile will probably help him out on the following turn, but this is part of playing Arceus that you don't like to see. If you miss that opening energy, you're stuck for an extra turn.
There is one Arceus V in the prize cards for Grant. So just a little bit of a lower chance of actually getting his hands on it. But with a Drizzile, you can immediately just get that Evolution Incense, get a Quick Ball, something like that, get this up and running. But now with the Irida finding the Radiant Greninja, finding the Capacious Bucket, the 2 best cards that you can pull off of the supporter, things look to be getting off to a fantastic start here for Nick.
Yeah, there is a lot of bling in the hand. I see so many golden item cards, and those are likely going to be ways to search out Pokemon here. You have to take advantage of that in the early game here. Try to find yourself a Palkia V.
And we'll see how many of these cards Nick can truly make use of this turn. There's the level ball coming down. We've got the choice belt. I don't know if Starmie V really wants to be what you want to commit to here. So it has the level ball, has the quick ball, discards the Professor's Research. Now that you've got the Radiant Greninja on the bench, you've got a little bit of card draw. You're okay with getting rid of this supporter. And it looks like Palkia V being set up here to put onto the bench. And a Sobble also grabbed from the level ball.
You love to see when a player wins their opening 30-minute game and then continues to keep up that pace, playing multiple actions there and once just to save time, give both players an opportunity for a nice full game here. So props to Nick for continuing that strong pace of play.
Yeah, being efficient shows that Nick is very comfortable on this list. Even though Palkia V is the new deck on the block, at the end of the day, it still has the Inteleon engine backing it up. And if you've played a ton of Inteleon, a ton of Sobbles, you know exactly how all these sequences go. And Grant now struggling to get a threat in play with Nick, having that Palkia V on the bench with a water energy attachment. That means that he's only 1 turn away from exploding and starting to take some prize cards.
Yep, we see Grant finally going to make his way through the deck. This is the first search, and finally we see the quick ball now. The Arceus V has been waiting to come out now, and now is going to be a little more susceptible. This is an awkward turn where Grant is going to have to play this down, and we already see the Palkia V on the other side with an energy that lines up so many interesting plays, potential boss's orders to get in some big damage.
The first way that players discovered to counter Arceus V, I think, was when you're able to use that boss's orders to snipe this Arceus that's on the bench with the attachment before it has a chance to give your opponent access to that Starbirth ability. Grant has to try to protect this thing with a big charm. Maybe it's enough, but again, with that Leon, with that Tool Jammer, even when you feel like you're limiting the damage, the Palkia still finds a way. Drizzile is now the opener for Nick. Going to keep looking to the deck and finding the next era of tech. Irida being eyeballed, Capacious Bucket, and Palkia V-Star. Nick going to double check the hand before committing to those selections.
It's nice to see this deck work when you get to use the Irida and go grab exactly what you need. This is what Natalie was talking about. This is beautiful. You get that Capacious Bucket, multiple energies likely to come down here, and you can really start flowing through the deck. We could see the Radiant Greninja using some concealed cards and then star portals potentially online. Make use of that before you see that path to the peak. And we do see the Arceus V with the big charm on the other side, so certainly going to slow down things a little bit here, but maybe Nick can find an interesting play just depending on how many waters are available.
Yeah, now with the supporter being used for the turn, there is going to be no Leon, but we could still find, again, that Tool Jammer. Try to bring, once you KO this Sobble, Grant might be forced to just promote the Drizzile to protect this Arceus, give it another turn to keep growing and get some attachments to it.
There's 3 water energy. There won't be a Drizzile because Radiant Greninja could just take them both off the board here. I see 1, 2, is that 3?
is looking for it. Is there a way to discard here?
There's a retreat available.
Nick Flores just making absolutely sure. Starmie V actually has free retreat, goes for the level ball. And the makings of a gargantuan play are brewing for Nick Flores. If we can get the Star Portal to accelerate energies to Radiant Greninja, can use that Moonlight Shuriken and knock out this Drizzile on the bench before it has a chance to generate any value. If Grant is left with just an Arceus V in the active with a big charm, it's going to be the end of game 2 potentially, with Nick Flores closing it out and showcasing the true power of Palkia V-Star after it was failing to demonstrate its form on the big screen here at NAIC.
Well, Nick is going to go ahead and grab that Manley, it looks like. Just trying to piece together what the best option here now is. Thinking about next turn, we already saw that Irida this turn around, but just having additional resources, never a bad thing. Surely to be some water energies in that discard pile on the following turn.
This is one of those games that's not going to be a back and forth, Kyle. This isn't going to be, I'm attacking, then you're swinging back. This is just Nick Flores trying to get as far ahead as possible and just deny Grant the ability to even participate in this second game. There's the attachment with the Star Portal, free retreat into the Radiant Greninja.
Path to the peak as well. And Grant's just sitting there with a 4-card hand, and he's going to we're going to see the damage onto the Arceus one more time. This is a play that Nick loves to work in. It's so awkward with the Sharon's Care. This Arceus V is the only one in play, so we're not going to see a clean Arceus V-Star this turn.
And Grant Manley has to go for it. The Sharon's Care to scoop up the Arceus and heal that back up. And with the Arceus having to be re-benched, even if there was a V-Star available, it can't evolve this turn. So cutting off that line, cutting off the Starbirth, especially with the path to the peak, Grant Manley is backed into a corner. Sobble's the only thing that can buy one more turn. Palpad's going to try to find the Sharon's Care and the Marnie, shuffle those back into the deck. Sobble can hopefully evolve into a Drizzile here, find one of those 2 cards, but Grant Manley is just struggling to stay afloat, not being able to put up any sort of threat.
Yeah, that body demeanor says it all. This is not going Grant's way. This is so brutal. You already see that just with one Sobble left and the path to the peak locked in, essentially, it's going to be a lot to ask Grant's deck to figure out a way out of this with all of these, all this pressure coming down from the Palkia V-Star.
And now over to Nick. Quick ball, getting rid of that Battle VIP pass. Finally a game where the Battle VIP pass shows up late, and it doesn't matter because Nick has already done the early setup. This Radiant Greninja looking so stylish in the active spot, got that Moonlight Shuriken down. And now we're just looking through the list, figuring out what else we want to grab. Could be a fail just to thin even further. But just gets another Palkia set up, another attacker. There is no Collapse Stadium. The path to the peak is holding it down. We want to get as many attackers as possible, and this is perfectly fine if you're Nick Flores.
Yep, we already saw that Manley earlier on, so energies are soon going to be accelerated. That's a nice way to, nice find there. And now you could potentially have an energy for the turn for that Palkia V if you want to start setting that up on the bench as well. Just give yourself multiple ways to continue to keep this pressure on Grant.
Draws 3 cards off the Manley. Just a lot of gold, a lot of bling in the hand. The embarrassment of riches once more. And the Radiant Greninja gets to retreat, has that final energy attached to it, bringing Palkia V-Star up into the active spot.
I want an embarrassment of riches.
And is going to take the knockout on the Sobble. One more prize goes to Nick Flores. Even though this is looking like a slow game, it is just going to be the scoop from Grant Manley. Backed into a corner. Arceus V with no ability to use the Starbirth thanks to that path to the peak. There was no way out, and Nick taking that clean 2-0 and reminding us why Palkia V-Star is the new boogeyman in the